Shabbos Daf Hey. So we were talking about the rule of going from Rosh Hashanah to Rabbim and going through a Carmelis. And part of that was talking about whether or not the ear space of a certain Rishos is considered that Rishos as well. So the Gemara opens, Haya Aymed B'finim. The person was standing on the inside. The Yadai Malaya Peiros Peshuta Lachotz, and his hand had all these fruits on the outside. The Kadash Allah Hayoim, and on a day that became Shabbos, all of a sudden nightfall came and it came Shabbos. So also Lachzirai, so forbidden to draw his hand in, because what's going on? He has his hand outside in the Rosh Hashanah, and if by bringing his hand in, he's going to cross Rishuyos. So this sounds like that even if it was placed in his hand, contrary to the Mishnah says if someone places something in your hand and you bring it in, so then it's not considered a malacha, considered pater. But here, when Shabbos started, you're holding it and you bring it in, there isn't even a placing. So how is that chayiv? Rabbi Yaakov b'shem Rabbi Yaakov b'shem Rabbi says, "Command Amar Ashlo Shtamish ba'avir asara." So this is according to the one who says it is forbidden to make use of ear space within 10 tvachim. So what happened? So he has his hand within 10 tvachim of the ground, and then when he lifts it up and pulls it in, it's like he's picking it up. So with his hand is within 10 tvachim from the ground, it's not only the ear space of the Rabim, but it's like his hand on the ground of Rosh Hashanah, and it's like he picks it up and he puts it into the other Rishos. That's a picking up, that's putting it in, and therefore you have the entire malacha. Is Tane? So is there a Tana who teaches that it's mutter? Is it possible? Let's see. So have a boy Meimar. So they wanted to say like this. So man Demar mutter, the one who says that it's permitted Shesham Roichav Arba. This is where there was a column that was 4 tvachim wide. So you have 10 tvachim high, and then you have 4 tvachim wide. So that itself will become a rishos. Umanda Amar Aser, and the one who says that it's Aser, B'she'ein Sham Roichav Arba. That's when there is no platform. So what's happening really is when you say it's mutter, it's because it's above 10 tvachim from the ground. So therefore he's not picking it up, and then he brings it in. However, the one that says Aser is that he is either within 10 tvachim on the ground, or he's within this platform that is sitting there that is 10 tvachim by 4 tvachim, 4 by 4 tvachim in the rishus. That makes its own little rishus over there, and you bring it from one rishus to another rishus. But of course, the question is like this: if you are sticking your hand outside from Rishus HaYachid and you're sticking to Rabim, and there is a platform there, so then that platform is not Rishus HaRabim. That platform is Rishus HaYachid. So the one who says that it's Aser is saying when you don't have this, because when you do have it, right? When you do have it, so then it's mutter. Why is it mutter? Because it's not Rosh Hashanah anymore. Now he's taking it for Rosh Hashanah. However, when you don't have that, then you're taking it as if you're picking it up from the Rosh Hashanah, because you're within 10 tvachim of the ground. So you're picking it up from. It's like picking up. It's like your hand is actually on the ground, and therefore it is aser. Rabbi Yosi b'Re'ebun. Rabbi Yosi says in Re'ebun, ben zeh or ben zeh, ben this one or that one. Command Amar Asr l'shtamish ba'avir asara. Both are in accordance with the one that says it's asr to make use of airspace within 10 zvachim. My kitain. So what is then talking about the brisa? So man the Amar Asr, the one who says that it's asr lemata me asara. You're within the 10 zvachim. Command the Amar mutter lemayla me asara. Okay, so that makes a sense of what we're talking about. That his hands must have been within 10 tvachim, so it's as if he put it on the ground. But if his hand was above 10 tvachim, then it's sort of like he's in a Carmelis area, or at least he's in Rosh Hashanah, but he didn't put it down. Ha'ani chayiv v'balabayis pater. So we learned in the Mishnah that the ani is chayiv and the balabayis is pater when the ani picks it up and brings it outside. Rav Yehuda b'shem Shmuel. Yehuda says the name of Shmuel. V'hushta yadoi shel ani b'soich asar l'karka. So this is that the ani's hand must be within 10 tvachim of the ground. Because then when he brings it outside, so just by bringing it outside shouldn't be enough, but it must be that his hand then becomes within 10 tvachim of the ground. So Amar Rab Zera says, "Barachayik min hakoisel arba." That when the poor person is at a distance of 4 tvachim from the wall, Aval in a rachayik min hakoisel arba. But if he's not 4 tvachim from the wall, so karmelasi. So then it's a karmelis. So if he stands in 4 tvachim of a wall, what's going to happen is his body is then becoming a karmelis, and if he becomes a karmelis, so now you're bring it to the shus of a karmelis, and it's no longer chayiv. So it must be that the ani was not standing within 4 tvachim of a wall, so he was not becoming a karmelis. Rabbi Loza b'shem Rabbi Shimon Karsana. Rabbi Loza says the name of Shimon Karsana, that even if the poor person was standing within 4 tvachim of the wall, it all depends on how he faced. Bishahu pana tafucha islapalta. If his face turned toward the plaza, if his face is turned toward the Rishos HaRabim, then that's fine. Then you have the Balabayas will be liable in that case. Then there's no longer a karmelis. Avalim hayapanav have huhais lekaisel, but if the ani is facing the kaisel, karmelis, he's a karmelis, and the balabayas would not be chayiv in the case where he takes it from the ani and then brings it inside, or when he takes it from inside and places it into the ani, because now it's going to be a karmelis. The ani is making a karmelis. It all depends on the way he faces. So you have to understand, when we're talking about carrying from rishos to rishos and also dealing with things like that, we already learned from these previous dafim. You have to halt up and understand and realize there's so much more than just bringing it from rishos to rishos. It's also, was it brought from your back, carrying from your back to your front? Is it from one hand to the other hand? Are you next to a wall to make karmelis? Is it within 10 tvachim from the ground, above 10 tvachim from the ground, ear space? All these things have to be taken into consideration. And now we're going to talk about over here different ways to make different rishuyas or karmelises in other rishuyas. So, for instance, if you have poles or if you have chests that are sitting in Yerushalmi, whether or not they're going to create a karmelis, whether or not they're going to create a small sayachid, and then we're going to go also and find out exactly why we think 10 tvachim and where we learn out 10 tvachim is the attachment to the ground. How was it 10 tvachim as opposed to things that are, let's say, 4 amis or something else? Where did the measurement 10 tvachim come from, and why that is considered going to be attached to the ground? Rabbi Chizda b'shem Ashi, Rabbi Chizda in Rashi, Kana no'otz b'shos harabim gavoya asara tvachim. So you have a pole that's stuck. So the pole is not arba tvachim wide; it's just a very thin pole, and it's way higher than 10 tvachim. So So it's permissible to go ahead and put it on there and take it off there, so long as you don't exchange. In other words, as long as you don't go from Rabim and then you put it on there and then take it off of there and put it down Rabim and then go to another rishus. So long as you're just standing in the same rishus that you are, wherever the pole is, and you're putting it on and taking it off, that is fine. Rav Amar, at least that's putter. Rav Amar, Rav says, Tarcha Yishahu I made rishus Rabim. But however, what happens if you have a chest? And the chest is going to be standing in the Rishos HaRabim, so it's Gvoya Asar Tzvachim, it's higher than 10 Tzvachim, V'Reichav Arba Tzvachim, and it's more than 4 Tzvachim wide. So Hashtam Zoicha Rishos HaRabim, Rishos HaRabim will Zoicha Chayev. You take it from Rishos HaRabim, put it on there, or take it up from there and put it in Rishos HaRabim, then you're Chayev. Why is that? Because that is actually Rishos HaYachid. Even though it's not surrounded by walls, it's above 10 Tzvachim, and it has 4 tvachim width, that will make it a Rishos HaYachid. That's the minimum for Rishos HaYachid. And that then putting it on and taking it off will then be taking it from Rishos HaYachid onto Rishos HaRabim or Rishos HaRabim onto Rishos HaYachid. Whereas the pole that does not have the 4 tvachim, it's higher than 10 tvachim, that is just a karmelis. Tani Rabbi Haishia taught in the Brisa. So menorah, let's say you have a candelabra. Shehi Aymenes Rishos HaRabim. It's standing in the Rishos HaRabim. It's Gevaya Asar Tzvachim. It's more than 10 Tzvachim tall. And Arba, and it also has 4 Tzvachim as width. One who takes Rishos HaRabim from it, or takes from Rishos HaRabim and puts it onto it, so then you're chayiv, because that is also considered to be a a private domain. Why the Gemara decided that I had to have a second case, I don't understand, because so long as we already taught the measurement of 10 tvachim and arba tvachim wide, that should be enough to say that that is a private domain, whether it's a chest or whether it's a menorah. What is the difference between a chest and a menorah? And then Amar Rav Manir says loy soif davar menorah, that it doesn't end by menorah, by candelabra, ella apilu kana b'rishos harabim k'vayasar tvachim. Many times b'rishos harabim 10 tvachim. The tavla of nusa b'rosha. Let's say you have a pole that's put into the rishos harabim. That's 10 tvachim. So the pole does not have 4 tvachim width. However, so top of tabla of nusa roisha, you put a tablet on top of its top, and the tablet is 4 tvachim. So if you can put it there and take it off there from sharabim to sharabim, that is going to be chayiv because that is also shayachid. So again, obviously, we just take a measurement. We can say very simply, the simple and measurement is that it's 10 tvachim high with 4 tvachim, whether it's a candelabra, whether it's a pole with a tablet, whether it's a chest, whether it's a bookcase, whether it's a statue, whether it's a potted plant, whatever it's going to be, that's what it's going to be. So those things are going to be shayachid, and then you're going to be chayiv. So now the Gemara is going to go into exactly how we know the 10 tvachim. So, minayin l'mayla masara hi rishos acheres. How do we know that 10 above 10 tvachim is an independent rishos? So, Rabbi Avu b'shem Rav Shem ben Lakish, Rabbi Avu said Shem ben Lakish, it says, "V'naitati l'cha sham v'dibarta itra mi'al hakapoyres asher alor enudos mi'bein shnei akruvim." It is from there that I will have my meetings with you. Hashem is talking to Moshe Rabbeinu, and I will speak to you from the kapoyres, and the cover of the aron, from between the 2 kruvim. That's going to be that the space where Hashem's talking to him. It's written, "Atem risem ki min hashamayim dibarti machem." You'll see that I've spoken to you from the heavens. So once you're above that amount, whatever the kruvim are, that is already the heavens. Below that, bistama is going to be the ground. That's what the Gemara is learning out. Again, this is what you're trying to learn now from the Chumash, and it's trying to get the contextual learning from. Did it say anywhere that below that is the ground? No, it did not. The better pasuk would have been if it would have said, and by the way, I'm speaking to you from within the top of the aron, and that will be like me coming up from the ground. Then we understand that even the top of the aron is considered like coming to the ground. We do know, however, that the Shemayim starts right above there. We don't know, however, where the Shemayim really starts. But we do know that where Hashem spoke from is about 11 tvachim. So 11 tvachim is considered the Shemayim. Okay. Do we know that 10 tvachim is considered the Shemayim? We don't know. In other words, it might be 5 tvachim. Okay? It could be 5, it could be 1 tefach off the ground is already considered the Shemayim. However, we know that at least 10 tvachim it is. So the Rabbanan can say, let's learn out that if we know that at least 11 tvachim is considered the Shemayim, so that's where we start from. Everything below that, 10 tvachim and lower, we'll consider to be part of the ground. Whether it is that or not, we'll do it, we'll enact something with Rabbanan, lechomra, to keep people from violating Shabbos. So this is what the theory was, using this pasuk and learning out about the 10 tvachim. So just like when Hashem spoke, there's another Rishos. After so too, it's a spoken word is another domain, and therefore if that was 11 tvachim, so then 10 tvachim above seems to be at least 10 tvachim above seems to be another domain. But how do we know that it was 10 tvachim? The aron loy tisha tvachim. Wasn't it 9 tvachim? Because how do we learn? We learned the aron was actually an amma and a half. So, depending on how many tvachim you have, if it's 6 tvachim to an amma, so you only have 9 tvachim. What happens also to the Gemara is going to say, what happens also to the one who says that an amma actually is only 5 tvachim? And here's the reason for this. A tefach and an amma are not exact measurements. They're basically every project that would be done would be the amma based on the head builder. He would measure from his elbow to the fingertip. That would be an amma. It was not an exact measurement. He could have been taller, could have been shorter. But all measurements for that project would be based on his amma. So that's so that the projects were uniform, at least based on the head builder. But when we're talking about, generally speaking, across projects, across generations, so now how do we know exactly how big the amma is? Is it 18-inch amma? Is it 24-inch amma? How much is a tefach? Is a tefach 3 inches or a tefach 4 inches? It's a handbreadth. It could be either. So there's machlokes on exactly how big they are. So now not only do we have machlokes, now of course we're not talking about an exact measure of inches. We're saying 10 tzvachim. So now the Gemara is going to talk about whether an amma is a certain amount of tzvachim. But you want to know how large 10 tzvachim is? 10 tzvachim could be, one measurement, and 10 tzvachim could be a bigger measurement. 10 tzvachim could be 30 inches. 10 tzvachim could be 40 inches. It could range that much. So they're not exact. Obviously, we have to do our best, but the Gemara is going to talk about this. So the base Rabbi Yana Emer, so the Academy of Rabbi Yana says the kapyrus tafach, the kapara. The cover of the aron, the kapyrus, was a tefach. But how does he know that? Reb Zera asks, "Minayin la kapyrus hi tefach." How does he know that it was a kapyrus was a tefach? It doesn't say the measurement anywhere in the Torah. Tana Rabbi Chananya bar Shmuel, or Chananya Shmuel taught like this: Kol hakelim shu hamigdash. All the kelim that were in the mikdash, nasna Torah midas archa v'rachva v'nasna shiur kamasan. The Torah gave measurements for their length, for their width, and dimensions of their height. Chutz min hakapyrus, except for the cover of the aron. Shenasna Torah midas archa v'rachva, which only gave the measurement of its length and its width. V'loy nasna shiur kamasai, did not give the dimension of its height. So we know that it was the length and the width of the aron, but we don't know how much above the aron that it stood. So you can derive it from the smallest keli of the mikdash. Vasisulam is geres taitach asadiv. So you make the border a tefach all around of the shulchan. So makan tefach, just as here it's tefach. So afkan here tefach. Or maybe it's not like that. The sisa zer zahav lemizgar tesaviv. You have to make a crown around it, right? So ma kol shehu, just like it could be any size of crown. Afkan kol shehu. This could also be any size. It could be even less than a tefach, or it could be 4 tvachim. So my kedain. So what do we do with this? How do we know exactly the measurement? Rav Acha bar Yaakov says, "Penei the ein penei apachos v'tefach." It says penei, the face of, and there's no face that's less than a tefach. Again, how do we know there's no face is less than a tefach? This is what he learns. He learned that at least it has a face, has a substance, has at least a tefach substance. In other words, if it's a face, then something that really you could see has a actual substance to it, to its thickness. So that should be at least a tefach. So for at least a tefach, so now we know. So the aron was at least a tefach. So the aron was at least 10 tvachim. Rabbi Yossi asks, "Ilu migdal shahaya ayred b'soicha bayis kavaya akaba." So is there a chest that is very high, standing inside a house, that shema einai mutter ushtamish b'soicha lebayis umin habayis b'soicha, that perhaps it would be usher to take it from the chest and into the bayis, and from the bayis into the chest? In other words, could you make another sayachid within that same sayachid? And the reason why he's asking this is as follows: because where was the aron sitting? The aron was sitting inside her sayachid. The aron was sitting inside the Kodesh Kodashim. It was surrounded by walls. It was already in a sayachid. So you're trying to say that the aron was going to be its owner sayachid because of the way that it's situated, that it's sitting there 10 tvachim tall. So is it possible that could you make something in a house that would be its owner sayachid within their sayachid? Obviously not. So Ella, Bisha Shahaya may lahen as a ruchais anan kamainu. So rather, it's referring to that when it's squared in all 4 directions. Okay, Ella Bisha Shahaya. Meireva lahen as a ruchais anan kamayu. Really, it's talking about when it's squared in all directions for the Mishkan. So what happened like this? If you look carefully in the Psukim of the Torah, it always says put the aron first. Whenever they stopped traveling and they had to set up the Mishkan, the aron was first, and then they would put the walls around. So when the aron was sitting there first, before the walls were around, that was Rosh Hashanah within Rosh Hashanah, and that's what it's talking about. But again, I don't really understand the question, because the question presumes that we're learning out Shayachid from the Aron, but we're not learning out Shayachid from the Aron. We're only learning out another Rishus from the Aron. In other words, when Hashem said that I speak from above the Aron, and I'm speaking from whatever that level is, that is from the Shemayim. In other words, everything below that is considered the ground, not necessarily another Rishos. So therefore, all we're learning from the Aron really is that 10 Tvachim and below is considered ground, and 10 plus Tvachim and above is considered Avir, it's considered air. That's all we're really learning. You want to learn that it's Onus Yachid, so then you're saying, okay, then you have something that's into the Rosh Hashanah. If it's above 10 Tvachim and it's a certain substance, now you're saying that it's Onus Yachid because it's above the Avir of the Sarabim and it's a certain width. So now you call it a Sayachid. That I understand. We're not learning that from the Aron. From the Aron, we're only learning that if you want to consider something above the Avir of what it is, it has to be 10 plus Tvachim. And that we learn from the Aron. Whether or not the Aron is sitting inside a Rosh Yachid, because Hashem said it's from the Shemayim. So even if Hashem spoke to Moshe Rabbeinu from the top of the Kapairos, when the Mishkan was standing, which is usually how Hashem spoke to Moshe Rabbeinu, it's still considered the Shemayim. So we still learn after 10 plus Tvachim is considered the Shemayim. So it doesn't make a difference whether or not the Mishkan was standing there. Okay, but that was Rabbi Yesh's question and answer. Nicha Kaman the Amar ba Amaz Shisha. It's understandable, so according to one who says that an Amma is Shisha, like we talked about, that an Amma and a half will be 9, plus 1 for the Kapairis will be 10. Baram Kaman the Omar Ba'amos Chamisha, but the one who says that it's 5, but Aron Lav Shiva Tvachim B'Chetziu, but isn't then it's 7.5 Tvachim. 7 Tvachim, and you're telling me that the Kapairis is now an Amos, so that's now 8.5 Tvachim. So 8.5 Tvachim is going to be, and as we talked about before, different measurements. So Rabbi Yaakov Baracham says, the base Rabbi Yanai Rabbi Shimon Ben Yetzadok, scholars of the Academy of Rav Yana Yerushalmi and Tzadok, Chad Yachlef La Min Aron, one derives from Aron, the Chorna Yalef La Min Ha Galis. Another one learns it from the wagons. Okay. V'la Yadi Man Yalef La Min Aron. Now we do not know which one derives from the Aron, or Ma Yalef La Min Agalis, which one derives from the Agalis. Umistavra the base Rav Yanai Yalfin La Bin Aron. It seems reasonable that Rav Yanai, who wants to say it's 10 Tvachim belongs to the Aron, and the base Rav Yanai Amrin of a Kaparis Tefach, the Kaparis of Tefach. Rabbi Shimon Ben Tzadok Yalef La Bin Agalis, and they're going to learn it from Agalis because otherwise the Aron is going to be too short for that. So, right? But we again we have no proof, because if it's the other way around, so then really technically, then according to one of them, it only has to be 8.5. Observer wondered, so Minayin Lagola Shahain Gavayas Asara, that how do you know that the wagons were 10? And even if you do assume that the wagons were 10, Amr Yesher says, Lafilu Toimar Gavaya Asara, even if it was 10 Tvachim high. V'loi Kol Tani Nami Nechemia, but Nechemia call them Tzav, they call them Tzav, Kimin, Kimarasta, they were to resemble chests, and therefore they'll put it from the sides. So how do we know that just because there were 10 above over there, but it wasn't necessarily they were put on above them, they were put on the sides. So how do we know that the sides, and where they put the things in over there, were 10? We have to learn it in the next daf.